timelier now more than ever. Through inspiration and action, this book provides the thirsty reader with a greater understanding of how we, as individuals, can positively affect change for ourselves and our collective humanity. I am Lois Herman, the author of Chronicles of Hope and the host of the Inspiring Hope radio show on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. You can find me at loisherman.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman, a leading expert in professional coaching, clinical hypnosis, and energy clearing. Lois is an award-winning author of Chronicles of Hope. She has decades of experience in advanced hypnosis techniques, has conducted highly effective success coaching programs that have helped clients discover ways to achieve success, empower themselves, their families, as well as holistic practitioners to expand their practices. Get ready to be empowered with your host, Lois Herman.
Hello, and welcome to Inspiring Hope. I am your host, Lois Herman, and I'm here to inspire you with positive messages and celebrate people who are making a difference in our world. When we focus our thoughts and energies on truth, honesty, and integrity, we create powerful shifts that cause us to be more positive and peaceful. As we lift our energy, we empower everyone around us. If we each do what we can to make small shifts in awareness, we create ripples of hope. Join us as catalysts for positive change for our families, our communities, and our world at large. I hope you are inspired by today's show. And I have a question. How are you handling the distress in our world? At this time of incredible confusion, many are feeling betrayed by allegiance to patriotism. Some are concerned about the changes being implemented by this new president. Others are holding on to convictions based on what they've been taught, while some are experiencing buyer's remorse, wishing they had paid more attention to what was really going on under the cloud cover of personality bias. Wise guides have been encouraging us for some time to look beyond the veil of illusion to see what is truth and what is fiction. We must look at what is good for our country and the future of humanity, if not for our sake, for our children and their children. Many are aware of the illusion and will be here to assist others as they start to awaken to the ugly truth. Those who have been asleep might be in shock at what's been going on right before their eyes for a long, long time. We are in a mental, emotional, and spiritual war right now. In addition to the national and international cyber intellectual war, we are in a war of hypnotic mind control. Ask yourself why the average person is not allowed to ask questions about the virus, masks, quarantine, vaccines, human trafficking, government corruption, election irregularities, and so much more. We're not allowed without being censored. Humans who ask questions are being muzzled and kept silent by being accused of being terrorists if they have divergent opinions. Yet, people who support the media narrative are allowed to destroy others and get away with it. What is wrong with this picture? Everyday Americans are encouraged to viciously attack others because of differing beliefs, ideologies, and theologies, like never before. Where is our freedom of speech? And who is listening to one another with an open heart? In a few moments, we'll hear from Dr. Jim Peck, who believes we must walk a mile in another's shoes before we reach judgment. We must have open conversations with one another and start to listen from our hearts. He will share his experience with how the attacks on one another are affecting his practice members and will offer suggestions as to what we must do to stay healthy in this critical time of awakening. Please help us share these messages with the world by subscribing to our YouTube channel, like and share our videos, and check out our websites, loisherman.com and chroniclesofhope.net. You are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman at WSMN 1590 or 95.3 FM. At this moment in time, the foundation of our world is being shaken to cause us to take inventory and appreciate what is really important. Rather than accept everything as absolute, we must open our minds, ask questions, and explore possibilities to learn what is real so that we may gain a greater awareness. As we learn to listen with our own hearts, instead of the mindless clanging noise so prevalent around us, we will come to discern what is true and what is false. Let us remember we are all one people with different thoughts, ideas, and beliefs. When we come together as one civilization with respect for one another, we will be empowered to help each other through this crisis to create a better home for humanity. Those who have the courage to ask questions, think for themselves, and investigate beyond the obvious are starting to stand up and speak out. They are fighting for our freedom of speech, for what is right and just and good. Who do we listen to, and where do we place our trust? When we encounter abusive, opinionated bullies, my suggestion is do not engage. Turn the other cheek and walk away. These negative people have been fed a destructive rhetoric and are programmed to attack without a heart to listen. Don't waste your energy on them. These verbose sleepers have been hypnotized by the media and are truly asleep to the reality beneath the illusion. Soon they'll come to a rude awakening when they realize the false narrative they have been parroting and might hopefully be ashamed of their behavior toward their fellow man. The isolation and confusion we have experienced has created further division among people, adding fuel to the verbal attacks in social circles. This is damaging to the ability to put our differences aside and come together in unity. What can we do to shift the negative energy and stay emotionally healthy in this critical time of awakening? As Dr. Peck says, we must walk a mile in another's shoes before we jump to judgment and accusation. We need to be open to conversing with one another and start to really listen from our hearts. As truths are being exposed, silent sleepers will begin to ask questions, and we must learn to listen with compassion and an open mind and open heart. Many spiritual ones are holding the energy of grace as the truth is allowed to unfold. We are here to assist. Right now, there is such animosity among people based on beliefs. We all have flaws. We have opinions. We've made mistakes, and our lives are far from perfect. Yet, humanity needs unity. If we each do our own personal work to gain understanding, achieve clarity, and connect with what is true in our world, we can shift externally directed anger and hate toward a collective of peace and acceptance. When we open our hearts to one another and learn to listen without preconceived judgment, we come to a place of peace and kinship. Working to bring hope to humanity, many aspire to be the voice that rallies, helping those who are blind, asleep, and unaware, bringing comfort and harmony as they awaken. Jesus said in one of our sessions, the important thing is to get people to listen. The message has to be delivered in a way not just that they will understand, but in a way they will hopefully accept. By listening to the wise guides of the collective, we know it is possible to prevent the inevitable demise of our world. If we can work to shift the trend of negativity These guides encourage us that humanity does have a chance to reverse the spiral and thrive. As each one of us makes choices every day that move away from negative energy and world destruction, we move toward positivity and inspire hope for a wonderful future based on togetherness, honor, and respect for each other and our precious planet. One of my favorite poems, The Desiderata. In this, Max Ehrmann said, "Go placidly among the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others." So how can we get people to open their hearts and truly listen to one another without preconceived opinions? How do we get them to pay attention to truth so they feel safe in this world of confusion? You are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman at WSMN 1590 and 95.3 FM. And you can find me at loisherman.com. Today, I am honored to be joined by Dr. Jim Peck, an amazing chiropractic doctor, a man with great integrity who believes we must walk a mile in another's shoes before we rush to judgment. Jim has a thriving practice with his wonderful wife, Christine, who is an amazing hypnotist, and daughter, Dr. Audrey Peck, who practices gentle healing techniques with her chiropractic skills. Their practice members are all ages, sizes, and shapes, including the four-legged ones. Having observed many challenges and changes in their practice members in this time of confusion, here to describe and discuss this with us today, please help me welcome Dr. Jim Peck to the studio. Hi, Jim. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Lois. Thank you. And that was a very powerful introduction. I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You know, Mahatma Gandhi said that when you want to deliver truth, it has to be delivered with love, or the message and the messenger will be rejected.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what you just did. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do have to say that a lot of that came from the Chronicles of Hope books. They were guided intel from them, and then I was guided to write passages. So I'm just referring back to them to bring messages to people in this time of confusion. There's so much anger and hate, and we've got to straighten up.
Hear, hear.
So tell us a little bit about what your practice was like before, say last year this time. Before everything changed. What was it like?
Well, what is very interesting is a chiropractic practice is an unusual practice. It's more of a group of family members, because what we encourage is for people to come for a lifetime, to come frequently to care, because the body is constantly under stress from the environment, from all different things, whether it's somebody yelling at you and your muscles reacting, or
right.
taking something that your body reacted to, or slips and falls. All different things cause your body to accumulate stress. The job of a chiropractor is to relieve that stress by opening up the nerve system, aligning your skeletal system. What has always been fun in the practice is people get to know each other. We come into the office, we've got a large gathering area where people will get to know each other, speak and open and share their love. And now with the COVID situation, it's been completely different. We closed off our main room, which is a child's playroom, where we have lovely toys, and children get to interact with each other. We've had to close that because of the fear of COVID that people have developed. We have people coming in one at a time in the office now, instead of coming in and interacting with each other. So that feeling of community has been somewhat sacrificed, which is very disappointing for the practice members as well as for the chiropractor and the chiropractic staff. We have taken many precautions, many of which we don't physically believe in, which we will talk about as we're going on with the message. And people are coming with more and more fear. And it's really sad to see the degree of fear that everybody has. It's amazing how many people want to sit in the waiting area to converse, especially with Christine, saying, this is my only opportunity to go out. And we're seeing that people are really stressed, fearful. And interestingly, the people that most want to wear their masks are the first ones that will come and say, I'm so tired of these masks, I really hate them.
And yet they still wear them.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah. And there's been a lot of information about the masks as I was talking about. And now I'm one that questions. I've was raised to not question, so therefore as I got through my formative years, I rebelled and I'm going to question everything. So I'm a questioner. And like you, I have a different type of a profession because with hypnosis, it's about questioning our beliefs, because our beliefs are what cause our disturbances in our physical, mental, emotional body. And so we go back and we look at where did that belief come from? When we can look at it, question it, change it, then it shifts everything in our energy. So I'm huge on questioning. So I've been questioning what's with the masks, and there's a lot of information out there now, a year into it, where people are getting sicker because of the masks. There's information again. What I have been encouraged to do, and what I will encourage listeners to do, is investigate for yourself. Go to DuckDuckGo. We used to say Google it. Well, I would disagree. Google has a specific media bias. So you will, if you Googled or you researched, let's just change that to research the same phrase, word, thought in DuckDuckGo versus Google, you will get two very different responses. So my encouragement to the people is start investigating. Ask your questions, investigate for yourself. So you'll find that there's many tests that even if you wear a mask for a period of time and then you take a swab of it and put it under a petri dish, it's covered in mold. Now we breathe that mold, it comes into our lungs, and then we're having a higher instance of pneumonia and other kinds of lung disease. Dentists are reporting dental diseases because of wearing the mask. So there's a lot of side effects. So people need to be aware of when it's appropriate to wear a mask if you need to, and when you need to practice moderation. I see people out walking their dogs in nature wearing a mask, and I'm thinking, this is insane. So, but that's their choice if they want to. People need to research what the downside is.
It's interesting because in the practice, we've seen many instances of people who have gotten sick from wearing the mask. One person came in about a month ago, and she was saying that she had just woken up on a Saturday night and was coughing up blood. Went to the hospital where they couldn't find anything because they're not even recognizing that it was from wearing the mask, placed her on heavy antibiotics. We just recently, just this Friday, had a practice member who came in, a regular practice member, who had a similar situation. He wasn't spitting up blood, but he started developing pneumonia because of wearing the mask. And ironically, he was placed on antibiotics, which caused him to get some major stomach distress. What startled us as chiropractors, because we're constantly trying to educate people, was that he didn't understand that when you take an antibiotic, it doesn't just kill that specific germ that is bothering him for the pneumonia, but it will kill also the helpful flora and fauna that's developed inside of his stomach that helps him to digest food. People seem to think that when they're taking medication, that when they read about side effects, they think it's sort of like Russian roulette, that, well, yeah, some people will get that, but the odds are I won't, when actually they're really effects.
Absolutely. I know that taking the probiotics and the prebiotics are helpful for the gut flora, and taking antibiotics when you need them, that's one thing. But there are a lot of other remedies that you can do to help your body, and prevention is key. Prevention is key. So I know that I come as a practice member, and I'll sit there and chat with Christine, and there will be people who come in who are ardent mask wearers, and they look at us with disdain because we're 6 feet apart. We don't necessarily always have our mask on, but they've been fed this narrative that you have to wear the mask at all costs. So what I have read is, even if you believe what this virus is, and there's questions about that, but it's 6 feet apart. Why do you need to wear a mask if you're 6 feet apart? The mask is theoretically to prevent the exposure of another person, and it's either distance, it's cleanliness, washing your hands, or it's wearing the mask if you're following that narrative. But it is amazing how many people have been programmed that if you're not wearing a mask, you are disobeying the law. You're doing something wrong.
And endangering them. And what is most interesting is if you look at just common sense, the size of this virus is far smaller than any of the particles that can pass through any mask that made, including the fancy ones that they talk about. And there are many doctors that will totally agree with that. If you just look at the Great Barrington Declaration, there's over 50,000 medical doctors who have signed this declaration stating exactly what we just said.
And now we're talking about, well, then you should wear a double mask. I mean, this is absurd.
Horrifying.
Yes. And so, again, ask questions, people. Get real. And we're noticing that there are some things that are changing now. Narratives are changing because of different political situations. So it's very interesting how things are changing. And even there's information about the virus itself that there's some doctors who have done extensive studies that they're saying that this is really a type of flu.
Which makes total sense. And when they talk about the total death rate, the difference between the flu and this COVID, even with the numbers, the way we're seeing these numbers, which may or may not be true, is less than 0.01%, 1/1000th of a percent difference as far as the death rate.
Especially among ages, different ages. Yeah, you and I both looked at a report that was very eloquently given by Dr. Simone Gold.
Yes.
Yeah, that I think people should research her, look that up. Do you remember what the name of the website was offhand?
Yes, it's the AFLDS.
Okay.
Which stands for, let me dig it up because I wrote it out.
Okay.
The Association of Frontline Doctors.
Okay.
And she happens to be a board-certified emergency room doctor, and her credentials are just outstanding, and she has been brought in to speak at many different medical conventions simply on this subject.
Mm-hmm. And she was, last year, her instinct and her medical background, not instinct, I mean, that's one piece of being a doctor. As you well know,
Yes.
you use your instinct a lot, but you also coupled with your medical expertise and knowledge. And she was giving hydroxychloroquine to people. And she got fired for it. And the reason she was fired was because the doctor, the head of the hospital, wanted the money, right?
Exactly.
Yes, it's a shame. And so now all of a sudden, oh wow, well now we can now prescribe hydroxychloroquine. It's absurd. So she goes into extreme detail. And I was very impressed by her delivery.
I agree with you, and exactly as you were saying, she was talking about ivermectin. There are different medications that all are extremely effective in taking care of this problem, and they were being denied to the American public for so long. And if you even look at President Trump, both he and his wife Melania were very sick. And within 2 weeks' time of getting this type of treatment, they were out campaigning again on a schedule that would have exhausted anybody.
Absolutely. And yet these people, I know that I work with naturopathic doctors, and they were talking about natural remedies last spring. And these doctors were all being censored. My question is why? Why? Why are people censoring? What is the hidden agenda here? And that's the thing that is most disturbing to me, that there are cures for people, yet the natural cures were being censored. And there's an agenda that we have to ask. Just these are those things that cause you to go, what's really going on?
We're living in alarming times.
Mm-hmm.
I recall being an older person that when I was in first grade, which was back in the 1950s, being taught about the Iron Curtain and about how they had to actually have Radio Free Europe in order to get the true news out to the people behind the Iron Curtain. And it seems that nowadays Radio Free Europe needs to come to America because that's happening here.
Right, and I know that I'm at liberty to share on the radio. I'm at liberty to ask these questions on the radio, and yet there are many media sources and outlets that they're giving false narratives, and it's very disturbing once you start investigating for yourself. Once you start thinking and looking, the research is there, the information is there, but you can't just take what you hear. Don't take what I'm saying. Don't even take what Dr. Jim's saying.
Exactly.
You need to research for yourself to find this information. So this website, and there was also a Dr. Lee Merritt, who was a retired military surgeon, who was saying very similar things about the death rate from this, that COVID has been around for many, many years. This is just another form of the same disease. And they talked about she talked at length about the challenges of the vaccines.
Very much so. And talking about the other thing is, when you go back to history, back with von Leeuwenhoek in the 1600s discovered the microscope. When he did that, he started refining it to the point where we started finding all these microbes, the different germs that were out there. And we gradually started developing a profession, the medical profession, that became fearful of these germs. And as we started moving along, we then went to Alexander Fleming, who in the early 1900s discovered penicillin and started using it as a cure-all. And it did amazing things in the beginning. But what happened was all this bacteria and the bacteria germs that were being killed by this started adapting to this and becoming superbugs. In the medical profession, we became so afraid of germs that the two answers were avoid these germs and kill these germs, when the irony was this world is symbiotic, and these germs are actually helpful to us as well as harmful, as long as they're doing the proper thing, as long as our bodies are ready for it. To quote Dr. Rudolf Virchow, who was considered to be the father of modern pathology, and I have his quote over here, so I'm going to read it. If I could live my life over again, I would devote it to proving that germs seek their natural habitat, diseased tissue, rather than being the cause of this dead tissue. In other words, mosquitoes seek the stagnant water. They do not cause the pool to become stagnant. Realize that these bacteria and the viruses, they're scavengers, and they place themselves into the weakened and distressed tissue, which means that when you're run down, when you're not feeling well, that's the time that you will get sick. It's not when you're healthy and active and doing the things that you should be doing. In chiropractic, we oftentimes talk about rats in a dump. If you go to a dump, you're going to find rats. Now, you can take these rats, clear them away, get them out of there, get ready, and the next day you're going to find rats again. But if you clean that dump up, take all the things out and just have a nice clean area, the rats are going to leave and they're going to go to another dump. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens with our bodies. We have to recognize our bodies are precise machines that require certain responsibilities and discipline for us to be healthy. It's not just, a lot of people think that we're just born to be healthy, and we really are not. We're born to survive. To be healthy takes effort on our parts, and we have to think about that every day of our lives. The things that we eat, the things that we drink, how much movement we do, even our thoughts, all affect our health. And unless we take care of that, we will have problems.
Exactly. And different people have different body types and body systems. Like you were talking about penicillin. I went into shock from a penicillin injection at a very early age. And since then, I am now hypersensitive to molds. Toxic molds. I'm hypersensitive to gluten and other things like that. Now, other people may not have the same sensitivities, but each of us in our own bodies, our own body flora, reacts differently. And so one size never fits all. And this is the question again. Ask what is in it? How is my body supposed to react to this versus another's? And because it's when somebody tells you that there's only one way, my motto is walk the other way.
Run away.
Because we're all different, and we have to pay attention to what is right and true and just and fair and healthy for my body. Like, I know you're big into yoga, and you love yoga. My body does not do so well with yoga. My body loves dance. So we each need to find what our body loves and feed our body that. Feed our body the healthy movement, the healthy sleep, the healthy thoughts, and healthy foods. But you can't just say there is only one way. And that's what's, I think, most concerning to me about this censoring and this narrative that you're only allowed to talk about and think one way. That, to me, is alarming. And this is where people need to pay attention to where is freedom of an actual healthy conversation. And let's talk about the different thoughts and different ways of looking at things. And that's not been what's been shown in our society today.
Well, in today's world, the word is the science. And that is thrown at people to as you're saying, kill conversation and really to stop people from looking at other possibilities. And when you really look at what the science is, it's not science, it's conjecture. the science is telling us, okay, wash your hands every 3 minutes, whether your skin is falling off or not. Don't go anywhere near touching your face. Use, whenever you walk in a place, wipe things down with Purell and other toxic substances that your body's going to absorb. Wear a mask, which is going to affect your breathing. It's going to affect a lot of things because you're protecting other people, in spite of the fact that there is absolutely zero evidence that that is the case. I had a practice member a little while ago came into me and said, Jim, the only thing I have going for me is washing my hands, wearing a mask, and staying apart from people. And the sad thing is that is by far the smallest thing a person has going for them. What they really have going for themselves is taking care of themselves. If you take care of yourself well, and also if we do quarantine the people who are at risk, and people know who they are. You don't have to walk around and tell someone I'm at risk. Just be more careful. And it's very, very simple. It's a different situation.
Absolutely, and I'd like to follow on with the concept of using the Purell. I was dealing again. I'm hypersensitive to chemicals, to all different types of things, and I had a really nasty rash on my hands for many years. Tried everything, went to the dermatologist, everything to get rid of this rash, and I finally found one dermatologist who said, Lois, you're allergic to your environment. Stop any chemicals. So I stopped washing my hands. I stopped using the hand sanitizers. I stopped using the chemicals, and lo and behold, the rash went away. So these people who are constantly putting these chemicals on their hands, it's damaging their skin, it's absorbing into their body, and we don't really know what it's doing to them, especially these children who are they're so fragile. I mean, they're strong and hardy, but their skin is so pure, and this is all being absorbed into their body, and we don't know. Again, it's question. What is it really doing to at least some of them? Maybe some of them not so much, but it will definitely affect others. I know it affects me.
Well, one of my concerns is we're seeing a prevalence of autoimmune conditions. We're seeing also obsessive compulsive disorder. We're seeing attention deficit. We're seeing fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. These things are not normal. They're not healthy things, and the body wasn't designed to have that. There has to be a reason. And one of the major reasons that we're just saying is chemical interventions in our bodies that are not healthy for us, and we're not always listening to our bodies and recognizing that.
And the between that and the isolation too. And before we get down the path too much further, you had a song you wanted Allison to play for us.
Yes, I want to play this song. It talks about cognitive dissonance, and I'd like everybody to listen to it. It's called "The Flowers Are Red" by Harry Chapin.
You ready?
The little boy went first day of school. He got some crayons and he started to draw. He put colors all over the paper, for colors was what he saw. And the teacher said, "What you doing, young man?" "I'm painting flowers," he said. She said, "It's not the time for art, young man. And anyway, flowers are green and red. There's a time for everything, young man, and the way it should be done. You've got to show concern for everyone else, for you're not the only one." And she said, "Flowers are red, young man, and green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen." But the little boy said, "There are so many colors in the rainbow, so many colors in the morning sun, so many colors in a flower, and I see everyone." The teacher said, "You're sassy, there's ways that things should be, and you'll paint flowers the way they are, so repeat after me." And she said, "Flowers are red, young man, and green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen." But the little boy said, There are so many colors in the rainbow, so many colors in the morning sun, so many colors in a flower, and I see everyone. The teacher put him in a corner. She said it's for your own good, and you won't come out till you get it right and are responding like you should. Well, finally he got lonely, frightened thoughts filled his head, and he went up to the teacher, and this is what he said. And he said, flowers are red and green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen. Time went by like it always does, and they moved to another town. And the little boy went to another school, and this is what he found. The teacher there was smiling. She said painting should be fun, and there are so many colors in a flower, so let's use every one. But that little boy painted flowers in neat rows of green and red, and when the teacher asked him why, this is what he said. And he said, flowers are red and green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen.
Wow, what a powerful song.
And it just talks about our educational system and what has happened to all of us. And right now, what the media is doing with all of us. Not only is it dividing us, it's telling us how we need to think. And the sad thing is it's so persistent and so powerful. That's what's happened to us.
Yes. And that's why for those of us who have been asking the questions, we have to have some compassion for these people who are only listening to the narrative because they're just unaware.
They see the flowers as red.
Their flowers are red to them, and they're adamant about it, and they're going to be a little bit shocked when they find that the flowers are all different colors, and there's actually some pretty ugly flowers out there that they're going to find. So we just need to have some compassion, and this is part of that listening from the heart. Wow, what a powerful song, Jim.
It's also very difficult because we also have to start to recognize things that when thoughts are put into our head and we lock onto them, and then when we hear something different, whether it seems to resonate with us or not, it creates what's called cognitive dissonance. And right now we're all kind of living in a world where cognitive dissonance is a bad thing. We're running away from it. Where as challenging as it is to hear these things, it's very important for us to open our minds and listen.
It's so true, and I think I've told this story before, but I had a client who I was working with a while ago, who had a lot of self-loathing and fear, and again afraid to express herself. And she was raised in the Middle East where there was bombing and war, and then her family moved to another country where the war had already been over. But in that country, when she went to school, she was told, you read this and you recite it back. There was no free thinking. And I thought, my impression was that her origin of her issue was in the war-torn bombing country. And she says, oh, no, that my family bounded together. We would hide under the dining room table from the bombs, but we felt safe and secure in each other's arms. In this other country that I went to, when I was not allowed to think or ask questions, and I was told by the others in this class, this is the only way you think, this is the only way that you speak, that was extremely devastating to me. It took away my independence. It took away my identity. I had to conform. And that's the fear of what's happening in America today, and people don't see it. And that's very scary.
Absolutely. It's very, very important for us to recognize this. And also, as you were saying, to do our own research.
Yes.
And we were going to mention a couple of websites that were very, very important.
Yes, please
The
do.
first one being www.alds.com, which is, again, this group of frontline medical doctors that will give you a lot of information. And they also have something that they would like us to look into and sign. And
Stop medical discrimination, right?
Thank you very much. Exactly.
Yeah, so this is that. They are really talking. They'll give you a lot of information about the vaccines and the actual virus itself. Don't listen to Jim and I we're giving you second and third hand information, but these doctors have researched it, and they deliver it in a very, very credible way. So definitely look into that, and then look into how you're handling this yourself, because we need to support one another. And many people, like you said, the people who are coming in and they're scared, the isolation is hard. And that's,
Absolutely.
From that mental, emotional perspective and spiritual perspective, we need hugs. We need touch. We need, I've also worked with a lot of clients who were orphans. And the concept of being, these people who've adopted children or children that have come from an orphanage feel abandoned. They lack touch. We all need to be touched by heart-centered words, touched by hugs, we need touch, and that's what's been taken away from us in this time too. And why?
Yes, touch, tenderness, and intimacy, and there's no question. Anthropologists for many years did a lot of research with monkeys, taking them away from their mother very early age, and what they discovered was it caused the origins of violence. And what would happen is the monkeys that were taken away from their touch of their mother started to shake violently all the time, and when they were in any close physical contact with another monkey, they would charge at them and actually attack and threaten them because they didn't know how to deal with this, because they were lacking in that important touch. There's no question we're sacrificing that, as we're sacrificing a lot of our other freedoms. For me, talking about my yoga love, at the end of a workday, I would go to my local YMCA for an hour class. Those aren't offered anymore. Mm-hmm. And things are very different because of what's happening now. We're sacrificing healthy activities in the name of health, and it doesn't make any sense.
I agree. And then to see people out running, I have with masks on, and I have a good friend that comes over and helps me at my house, and he was cleaning the floors. He had a mask on. I said, Dave, take the mask off. I don't want to get you sick. I'm like, have you been sick? No. Well, have I been sick? No. You're limiting your breathing ability by putting a mask on while you're working. This is not healthy for you. So and yet he was adamant about it. I said, okay, I tell you what, I'll stay away from you, 6 feet away. Please take your mask off while you're working. If I come near you, we'll put our masks on, okay? He's like, okay. So again,
Nice.
Listen, that was his belief. It's not for me to challenge his belief, but for me to honor his belief until a new narrative comes out. And there's a lot of different things that are going to be coming out.
Also, we're talking about that mental paradigm. I was told the same thing. I was told by someone who was very, very noble and loves people that he wanted to be part of the solution. And in his mind, part of the solution was taking that vaccination. Whereas the irony is we've already been told directly that if you take that vaccination, you still could be a transmitter and you still need to wear a mask and keep your social distancing. So really, you're not being part of a solution by taking this dangerous drug into your body, which is experimental. And literally, that's one of the things that was talked about in those videos, is that it is truly an experimental vaccine. And by putting this into your body and putting yourself at physical risk is not being part of a solution. It's actually, in the long run, becoming part of the problem.
And I do highly recommend that you watch some of the videos that are being presented by this group of courageous doctors, because what I heard that she said is once you take the vaccine, so they had a similar vaccine that they were given, that they were testing on the SARS virus, which is a different type of COVID, just a different mutation of the COVID. So it's still called a COVID vaccine or COVID disease. Anyway, 7 years after these animals had taken the vaccines, they were exposed to the virus. 100% of them died.
Yes, and also there's Dr. Judy Milkovich, who is a PhD researcher who specialized her career in researching these types of situations, talks about a zoonotic effect. And the zoonotic effect is because these things are actually being bred and raised on other species, that it opens up our bodies to the possibility of being infected with diseases that aren't even generic to our species. And there are so many possibilities. And also, as you were saying, we've got this now hyperactive immune system that's prepared constantly to try to react. The second it gets re-exposed to this, it's going to cause more trouble, not help.
Right. And then there's also potential side effects of sterilization and infertility. I don't know. I'm just asking the questions. This is part of what these doctors are saying. They don't know either.
Right.
That's the key, is if you're healthy, if you're young, if you're not compromised, avoid this right now until there's more information. There's no reason to rush out and get it. So it just, again, research. Think for yourself. We have the beautiful ability of getting on the internet and sharing information as long as it's not censored. And you have to wonder why people are censoring. So again, that's trying to force a narrative. It's trying to paint every flower as red. No, flowers are multiple different colors, and you have to color in between the lines. Nope. A free thinker is going to color outside the lines. We need to encourage people to be free thinkers, to color outside the lines, to color in, all the colors of the rainbow, to think for ourselves, to research for ourselves, and to understand what is right for us might be different for what is right for someone else. It's never about one way or the other. I often say, there's a whole keyboard. We play all the whole keyboard, and when someone tells you there is only one way, walk the other way.
Yes, we were blessed with Maseratis. And if you own a Maserati, you're not going to be pouring wood alcohol into the tank to get it to run. You're going to be taking good care of it. And when you think about it, this vaccine is not a natural product. It's like putting wood alcohol into your Maserati. And what we really need to do is take care of that Maserati, and it will take care of us. That's the beauty of the way nature is. We are meant to survive in this environment. We're not meant to run away from every germ that is possibly out there and feel the exposure, because it's like exercise. The only way you strengthen your immunity is you train it.
Yes, and I know that, as a mother with young children, that they're grown now, but, I was encouraged to let them play in the mud, let them get dirty, because that's how they build their immune system. They're exposed to all these germs, and it's good. You don't go to bed with the dirt on, but it's good to expose yourself to all different types of things, and it's good to expose yourself to different cultures and different things in the world. It broadens your mind, your awareness, and your immune system.
Exactly. That's really the message that we're trying to tell people, is that let's not be afraid of each other. Let's go back to the way life should be. My fear for us is that we're going to become like a Arab nation, where the women were constantly being covered up and thinking that was the normal way to be. And actually, when they take the covers off, they felt uncomfortable. And that seems to be where we're leading. And we want to be very careful about that, because recognizing our faces, seeing our emotions, being able to breathe properly, these are all healthy things, not unhealthy things.
And a smile is contagious and infectious, and it changes your energy and someone else's energy. And when we wear the masks, it hides the smile. And that's so sad. We need to smile. We need to engage and support one another. You actually said something about having 7 tools to success. Can you share those 7 tools to
Well, it's
success with
interesting.
us?
In chiropractic, we talk about that there are 7 elements to being healthy. The first one is your mental attitude. The cup is half full and probably more. Practice daily thankfulness for your God-given gifts, your family, your friends, etc. We believe that movement is incredibly important. Moderate exercise every day. Cross-training include balance, stretching, cardio, and strength work. Diet, you need to incorporate more fruits and vegetables, which have those phytochemicals that help our body function every single day. spinal hygiene. We need to keep ourselves flexible and mobile. A chiropractor would encourage being adjusted, because as you age, you'd much rather be wielding a golf club than a walker. The things we drink, we want to make sure we're drinking good, pure water, keeping our systems working well. The air that we breathe, people that are smoking or exposing themselves to unpleasant air, there's a price to be paid for that. And our posture, we need to be in very good posture, because we're constantly sitting or in certain positions. We need to make sure that our heads are not slumping forward, that our shoulders are not tense and tight. We need our bodies working the best they can do. And when we take care of these 7 essentials, we don't need vaccinations that are affecting our mRNA, that are changing our bodies in ways that we have no idea for the rest of our lives. And it's one of the things that I love, is that from my chiropractic education, I don't walk around in fear. I know that my body can handle what is being presented with, and it's a very exciting and free and opening feeling.
And I know that one of the chiropractic tenets that I've heard is sitting is the new smoking. And, I know that I sit a lot in my life, especially now that I'm seeing most people virtually. I have to make myself get up, move around, stretch, because that's what we're doing, a lot more sitting than our bodies were ever intended to do. We were meant to, if you look at indigenous people, they squat, they're on the ground, they're running, they're walking, they're moving, they're not sitting all day. And right now that's pretty challenging on our bodies, is to sit all day. And it's what we do. It's part of the evolution, but in that evolution of our workaday world, we also need to modify that with what we need to do to keep our body healthy and strong.
Well, talking about evolution is the real key. Our bodies and our minds were produced for something called the fight or flight mechanism. And this mechanism is what keeps us alive. It's in the prehistoric days, there's a dinosaur behind you going after you. You better start running or find a way to protect yourself. And so we would produce adrenaline and all the chemicals of panic in order to handle that. Today's panic and challenge is more like this 5 o'clock, I've got this deadline, what am I going to do? They're more emotional things, so we don't get that chance to burn that adrenaline off. And unfortunately, because of the law of conservation of matter and energy, we have to do it. So the body does the intelligent thing. It takes your largest muscle groups, the ones that attach your neck to your shoulders, the ones that attach your lower back to your torso, and the ones that are around your jaw, and starts to tense them. But over time, that starts to become inured to a point where there's no room for tension, and we start running around in what's called sympathetic dominance, which is that fight or flight mechanism all the time. We're not meant to be that way. We're meant to be more in what's called parasympathetic, which is a relaxed state. And because we're not in that relaxed state, it affects our health to a great degree. And we have to recognize that one of the best ways to get back into that is movement. When we're moving, we're burning off some of that excess energy. We're keeping our bodies doing what they were supposed to be doing. And finally, the same thing also is we have to mentally look at what is stressing us, and maybe brand that into perhaps that's not so stressful. Maybe it's actually a good thing. Let's give it a little bit of time and see what happens.
And one of the other parts of that is to develop a peace of mind strategy to escape from all that negativity. A lot of people do meditation, and I call it meditation, but it could be any form. It doesn't have to be sit there with the Om meditation. Meditation could be a walk on the beach with a dog. It could be, going outside and hugging a tree. It could be dancing. It could be playing music. Do something that gives your heart joy. That will shift that energy. So that's what we need to be able to do, is to shift our energy to joy. Dr. Jim Peck, thank you for being here today. We're near the end of our hour. I appreciate you being here. I will put on the website where we can get a hold of you. And everyone, keep your chin up, keep moving. Question, research, investigate, get those those chemicals going in your mind. And meanwhile, until next week, look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day. God
Lois,
bless.
thank you.
Thank you.